It all started on a Tuesday morning episode of Morning Circle Live, a popular political talk show known for pitting unlikely guests against each other. The producers had promised a fiery debate between Hollywood and Washington, but no one was ready for what unfolded. Pam Bondi, the former Florida Attorney General turned conservative firebrand, was invited to discuss the upcoming election and the increasing role of celebrities in shaping public opinion. Sitting across from her was none other than Robert De Niro, the two-time Academy Award winner and vocal critic of the current administration. From the first minute, the tension was unmistakable. Bondi, dressed in a sharp navy suit, kept her posture composed. De Niro, in a dark gray blazer with his signature scowl, leaned forward, ready to pounce. The host opened with a softball question: do celebrities have too much influence in politics? Pam smiled politely. Well, I think people want facts, not performances, she said calmly. Policy matters more than monologues. De Niro let out a dry laugh. That's rich, he sneered. Coming from someone who spent more time defending corruption than cleaning it up. The studio murmured. The host blinked. But Pam didn't flinch. Instead, she tilted her head slightly and said, Robert, the last time you were relevant in politics, it was because of a profanity-laced rant at an award show. That's not exactly legislative insight. The temperature in the room dropped. De Niro's jaw tightened. And then, he exploded. De Niro slapped his palm on the table. Oh, come on. I've got more patriotism in my little finger than half the people in your party, he barked. At least I speak out. At least I care. The audience gasped. Cameras zoomed in. Bondi didn't even blink. The host tried to intervene, all right, let's keep this civil, but De Niro cut him off. No, let's not sugarcoat this. People like her helped break this country. Then they sit here acting like they're the moral compass. It's a joke. Pam turned slowly to him, calm as ever. So let me get this straight, she said, voice cool as ice. You think shouting at cameras, cursing at rallies, and playing tough guys in movies qualifies as civic leadership? The room went silent. Even De Niro paused. Pam leaned in, her eyes locked on his. You've had decades to make a real impact. But instead, you chose to play make-believe and then lecture people who actually write and enforce law. There was a stunned hush in the studio. Then, boom. De Niro stood up and shouted, You don't know a damn thing about me. His voice echoed across the set. He was red-faced now, fists clenched, pacing behind his chair. You think wearing a suit and smiling makes you clean? Please. Cameras caught every second. Clips were already being clipped and shared. And Pam? She calmly sipped her water, then looked directly into the camera. America doesn't need more tantrums. We need leadership. The moment Pam delivered her line, we need leadership, not tantrums, the live feed lit up. Viewers flooded social media, some stunned, others cheering, others outraged. Within minutes, hashtags like hashtag De Niro meltdown and hashtag Bondi clapback were trending nationwide. In the studio, the host, clearly rattled, attempted to steer things back to policy. Let's try to refocus on, but De Niro wasn't done. You're deflecting. You're good at that, he snapped, pointing a trembling finger at Bondi. You spin things like a pro, like all your kind. Pam raised her eyebrows, but didn't speak. Oh, you've got nothing now, he continued, his voice rising. What happened to your clever little one-liners? That's when Pam slowly stood up, her expression unreadable. I came here to discuss ideas, not to babysit a Hollywood temper, she said plainly. You've had your career. You've had your spotlight. But you don't get to shout over facts. A few people in the studio clapped. Others held their breath. De Niro was visibly shaking now. You think you're better than me? He asked. You think you can talk down to me like that? Pam paused, then said something that would be played on every network for days. I don't think I'm better than you, Robert. I just think I'm more in control. The host nearly dropped his note cards. The crew behind the cameras glanced at each other, unsure if they were watching a political segment or a primetime drama. By the time the show cut to commercial, the internet was already in chaos. As soon as the show cut to commercial, producers scrambled. The control room was in a frenzy, directors shouting, phones ringing off the hook. They knew they had lightning in a bottle. Meanwhile, in the studio, Robert De Niro was pacing, mumbling to himself, still hot with fury. Pam Bondi, on the other hand, had already sat back down and quietly checked her notes as if nothing had happened. One of the show's interns whispered, "This clip's gonna be everywhere in 10 minutes." He was wrong. It was already viral. Clips of Bondi's calm takedown contrasted with De Niro's fury were spreading across platforms like wildfire. TikTok was flooded with lip-sync reenactments. YouTubers started breaking down the argument like it was a Super Bowl play. Twitter/X users were split down the middle, some cheering Bondi's composure, others defending De Niro's passion. The hashtag Bondi vs De Niro hit 1 million uses in under an hour. Backstage, a producer approached Pam and quietly said, "You've just gone nuclear. You're going to be booked everywhere now." Pam gave a slight smile. "I came here to make a point, not friends." Robert De Niro, still fuming, was rushed out through a back exit by his team. Cameras captured him shoving away a boom mic as a TMZ reporter tried to ask, "Mr. De Niro, do you regret today's appearance?" He didn't answer. That afternoon, Bondi's office released a short clip of the encounter with the caption, "Composure under pressure, celebrity outrage." By sundown, networks across the political spectrum were replaying the moment on loop. By evening, every major outlet had weighed in. CNN called it a chaotic and unfiltered glimpse into America's cultural divide. Fox News ran the clip with the headline, "Pam Bondi dismantles De Niro's rant, Hollywood meltdown live on air." Even apolitical entertainment shows jumped on it, labeling it the most dramatic live TV moment of the year. Podcasts released emergency episodes. Editorials sprouted up within hours. Viewers across the political spectrum were debating a single question: who really won? Robert De Niro's publicist issued a brief statement by midnight: "Mr. De Niro is passionate about this country and refuses to stay silent in the face of political hypocrisy." But the damage was done. Clips of his outburst were being remixed into memes, music videos, and even parody cartoons. His defenders said he was speaking truth to power. Critics said he came unhinged. Pam Bondi, meanwhile, appeared later that evening on a separate network. Calm, polished, and unfazed. "I've debated prosecutors, politicians, and pundits," she said. "An actor yelling over me doesn't change facts. If that's controversial, so be it." That segment alone garnered 3.4 million views in the first hour. The next morning, Robert De Niro was photographed entering a Manhattan hotel, stone-faced, avoiding reporters. Pam Bondi was trending on every platform. And the clip? It had crossed 50 million views in under 24 hours. Inside Hollywood, the reaction was just as fierce. Several celebrities jumped to De Niro's defense. Mark Ruffalo tweeted, "De Niro has earned his voice. Don't let political spin silence a man who's fought for truth his whole career." But others were less sympathetic. A producer from one of De Niro's past films anonymously told a reporter, "He's passionate, yes. But when he's cornered, he explodes. That's not new." Meanwhile, inside conservative circles, Bondi's performance was being hailed as textbook media discipline. A senior strategist on Capitol Hill commented, "She didn't just hold her ground, she used De Niro's aggression against him without raising her voice. That's surgical." Sources from Morning Circle Live revealed that the producers had anticipated tension, but not a full-blown cultural flashpoint. "We were hoping for sparks, not fireworks," one staffer admitted. "Now we've got a wildfire." Merchandise started popping up online, shirts with "Control a Chaos," mugs featuring Bondi's quote, even parody posters showing her facing off with a caricatured De Niro under the tagline, "Politics meets drama," and drama lost. Despite the media frenzy, Pam remained measured. When asked if she had anything personal against De Niro, she replied, "Not at all. I respect anyone who cares about this country. But if you come at me with emotion, expect logic in return." Behind the scenes, Bondi's team was fielding invitations from high-profile platforms, from 60 Minutes to Real Time with Bill Maher. As for De Niro, he went silent. 3 days passed with no public appearance from Robert De Niro. No interviews. No tweets. No statements beyond his publicist's vague remarks. His team reportedly cancelled 2 scheduled TV spots and a film panel he was set to headline in Tribeca. Industry insiders whispered about tension among his handlers, some urging him to apologize, others advising him to double down. Then, late Friday evening, a surprise video appeared on his personal Instagram. It was grainy, black and white, clearly recorded on a phone. De Niro sat alone in what looked like a quiet Manhattan loft, a glass of whiskey beside him. "I've been in this business a long time," he began, voice hoarse but controlled. "I've seen a lot of liars, a lot of spin, a lot of actors pretending to be something they're not, off-screen and on." He stared into the camera. "If people think I overreacted, fine. I probably did. But I'm not sorry for caring." He paused. "What I am sorry for," he added after a beat, "is letting her get under my skin. That's not strength. That's not the man I want to be." Within minutes, the video had over 7 million views. Comments exploded. Some fans praised his self-awareness. Others said it was too late. Meanwhile, Pam Bondi's response. A simple tweet, "I respect the honesty. May we all fight for what we believe, with strength and with reason." The tweet was retweeted over 250,000 times. For the first time all week, things began to settle. But the story wasn't over. By the start of the following week, talk shows, political analysts, and influencers alike had one clear takeaway: Pam Bondi had turned a volatile confrontation into a defining media moment, and emerged stronger. She was now fielding offers not just from political programs, but from mainstream platforms like The View, CBS This Morning, and even Late Night with Stephen Colbert, whose producers, surprisingly, reached out just to feel the temperature. Bondi didn't rush into appearances. Instead, she strategically chose a Sunday morning sit-down on Face the Nation, where she reframed the viral debate. "Look," she said plainly, "we all want this country to thrive. But shouting louder doesn't mean you're more right. Emotion has its place, but decisions are built on facts, not fury." Clips from her calm, calculated answers quickly circulated, many pointing out how she contrasted starkly with De Niro's earlier outburst. Meanwhile, De Niro's inner circle was in recovery mode. His PR team quietly began reaching out to allies in the media, setting up long-form interviews where he could shift the narrative. Still, the damage lingered. Polling among independents, especially those who'd seen the exchange, showed a bump in Bondi's approval. She wasn't just seen as partisan anymore, she was seen as disciplined, firm, and able to withstand pressure. Even some Hollywood figures began breaking ranks. A well-known actress tweeted, "I love De Niro. But that wasn't it. That wasn't strength. That was heat with no light." Bondi, for her part, stayed focused. "I'm not running for office," she reminded people in one interview. "I just believe that if you're going to talk politics, come prepared." She had turned a random Tuesday segment into a masterclass in control. The media storm hadn't just elevated Bondi's profile, it had altered the broader conversation about celebrity involvement in politics. Several networks began booking fewer actors and more former officials. Producers noticed audience fatigue with emotionally charged rants and a rising interest in guests who could stay cool under pressure. One cable executive was quoted anonymously, "People want clarity now, not just noise." On Capitol Hill, Bondi's name began popping up in news circles. Some party insiders quietly floated the idea of her joining a future administration, maybe not as a candidate, but in a high-profile cabinet or advisory role. She just proved she can go toe-to-toe with a cultural icon and not flinch, a strategist said. That's capital you can't buy. Even opposition lawmakers had to acknowledge the impact. A progressive congresswoman commented, "I disagree with almost everything Pam says, but I respect how she handled that moment. We could all take notes on composure." Meanwhile, De Niro's team moved forward with damage control. He sat down for an hour-long conversation on a popular podcast where he admitted he let his frustration get the best of him. "I love this country. I love the people in it," he said. "But yeah, I lost it. I let the moment get loud when it should have stayed smart." The honesty earned him some redemption. His core fans remained loyal, but the larger public viewed the incident as a cautionary tale about losing control on live air. Pam, meanwhile, never mentioned De Niro again. She didn't need to. Her message had already echoed far louder than his shout ever could. Weeks later, the clip was still circulating, not just as a viral video, but as a case study. Media trainers began using the exchange in seminars. One instructor broke it down frame by frame in a YouTube masterclass titled, "How Pam Bondi Outmaneuvered Robert De Niro, in 90 Seconds." Political science professors brought it into classrooms. Psychology podcasts analyzed the body language. Even leadership workshops cited it under segments like emotional intelligence in high-pressure situations. The incident had transcended the political sphere. Pam Bondi, for her part, kept her momentum. She launched a weekly digital series focused on navigating public debate without losing your mind, which quickly gained subscribers across demographics, including moderates and independents who had never paid much attention to her before. The premiere episode opened with a subtle nod to her viral moment, "You don't have to yell to be heard. Sometimes, silence makes the loudest point." As for Robert De Niro, he returned to film work and remained politically active, but noticeably more guarded in live appearances. Though his passion was intact, the outburst had left a mark. He later told Vanity Fair in a long-form interview, that exchange, "I learned from it. I'll never walk into a debate thinking fire alone will carry the day." In the end, it wasn't just about a shouting match or a calm reply. It was about what America wanted in that moment, not noise, but nerve. Not fury, but focus. And in that broadcast studio, when the lights were hottest and millions were watching, Pam Bondi didn't just clap back. She stayed standing while the room shook. Though the confrontation had ended, the ripple effects had just begun. Weeks turned into months, and Bondi's influence quietly expanded. She was no longer seen solely as a political surrogate or former state attorney. She had become a voice for composure politics, a term now being thrown around in think pieces and cable segments. Her digital series grew into a full production. It featured interviews with policymakers, veterans, teachers, even former political opponents. The emphasis was always the same: let's talk, not shout. Meanwhile, the industry behind Robert De Niro began adjusting, too. Hollywood figures started taking media training more seriously. Studios advised their stars to stay focused when discussing politics, or risk becoming part of the next viral eruption. The Bondi-De Niro moment was now seen as a milestone, not just in political television, but in cultural expectations. Viewers were evolving. Flashy outrage had run its course. People wanted poise, substance, and a little less drama. Political campaigns started analyzing the footage. A strategist from a major 2026 campaign was overheard saying, "This is the new gold standard. If your candidate can't stay cool like Bondi did, they're not ready for live TV." A political documentary titled "The Clapback Heard Round the Web" was announced, featuring behind-the-scenes interviews from staffers, journalists, and yes, even the host who sat between them that day. Pam was asked to narrate it. She declined politely. Her reason? "I'd rather let the moment speak for itself." And speak it did, in clips, in classrooms, and in campaign prep rooms all across the country. A full year after the broadcast that shook the nation, Morning Circle Live aired a special anniversary segment titled, 1 Year Later, The Bondi, De Niro Moment That Changed Everything. Pam Bondi declined the invitation to appear. Robert De Niro didn't respond. But the legacy of that televised clash still lingered, not because of who yelled the loudest, but because of who stayed standing when things got loud. At a major political leadership summit that fall, a keynote speaker referenced the moment without even saying their names. Real strength, she said to the packed auditorium, is measured not in volume, but in restraint. One person showed it when the cameras were rolling. The other showed us what happens when ego runs the show. The audience nodded, many already knowing who she meant. Pam Bondi went on to release a best-selling book titled, Hold the Line, Staying Grounded in a Loud World. It detailed her philosophies on leadership, debate, and remaining unshaken under pressure. It topped non-fiction charts for weeks. Robert De Niro returned to acting full-time. His political outbursts became less frequent, and in one rare interview, he offered a reflective thought, sometimes you say more by saying less. Took me too long to realize that. In the end, their clash wasn't just a viral moment, it became a cultural checkpoint. A moment when America, overwhelmed by noise, saw the value in stillness. And that was the last word.